May was a slow reading month for me. I read 3 books, all by new-to-me authors and all from my TBR shelf. Regarding authors, none were written by a woman or an author of color. 2 books were written by a queer author. Regarding main characters, all 3 books had at least 1 woman, 2 had at least 1 POC, and 1 had at least 1 queer character. One of the books I read was a graphic novel. I DNF'd 1 book. The primary genre spread was 2 fantasy and 1 sci-fi. Ratings-wise, it was an okay reading month for me. My highest rated book was 3.5 stars, the lowest 1 star. The first book I read was Abarat by Clive Barker. It follows a teen named Candy Quackenbush as she gets sucked into a fantasy world called the Abarat. I didn't realize the copy I had was an ARC. I don't like reading ARCs because I feel compelled to read the final version, and I don't have the time or inclination to reread books that may or may not be 90% the same. So I read a library ebook copy and followed along with the illustrations in the ARC. I really enjoyed the world building and the fantastical elements of the Abarat. I don't think there's a more delightful place named than Yeba Dimday. I probably would have liked it even better when I was younger. The prose presented the events and creatures in a beautiful and engaging way, and I have a few quotes favorited on Goodreads. There was one scene written like I was watching a movie. I could sense the heartbeat metronome getting louder over the thematic contrast between Candy's thoughts and the reality of her classroom. It was a fantastic moment. However, there's not much dimension to the characters or plot beyond the interesting world, so I won't be continuing the series. I rated it 3 stars. The second book I read in May, which I did not finish, was The Passage by Justin Cronin. It's the first in a series about a pseudo-vampire post-apocalypse, but 9.5 hours into the 37-hour audiobook, I still hadn't reached the details of how that happened. The book started off with engaging writing, but then I lost interest. It's one of those books whose characters exist to make plot happen, and not the other way around. It used casual racism, sexism, pedophilia, and other gross things in an effort to be edgy. I can't stand when authors do that. The point where I put the book down was in the middle of a graphic flashback from a pedophile's point of view, including a detailed account of his emotions at the time. It was completely unnecessary, didn't move plot or characterization forward, and was seriously gross. I spoiled myself for the trilogy, and I'm not sorry to miss the hell the author puts his female characters through. I gave it 1 star. The last book I read was Volume 1 of the graphic novel The Wicked and the Divine, written by Kieron Gillen and illustrated by Jamie McKelvie and Matt Wilson. The premise is that 12 gods reincarnate every 90 years and become incredibly famous, but only for a period of 2 years, after which they die. Some of the characters, relationships, and actions seemed underdeveloped, with progression happening all of a sudden. However, the premise is intriguing and presented fairly well in this introductory volume. The art is wonderful, and the colorist does brilliant things with light and dark effects. Honestly, the artistic depictions are what pulled me in most. I'll go into a spoiler section at the end of this video with one of my favorite scenes. The Morrigan character and design are my favorite, and I hope to see more of her. I've heard that the next volumes get better and will definitely continue reading. I rated this volume 3.5 stars. That's everything I read in May. Let me know in the comments if you read any of these books and what your thoughts on them are. The rest of this video is going to be a spoiler section, so if you don't want to know what happens yet, be sure to exit out now. Thanks for joining me. Okay, this is the spoiler section, so don't continue if you don't want spoilers. I'll be talking about my favorite scene in The Wicked and the Divine, Volume 1. I mentioned the light and dark effects earlier, and the scene toward the end of the volume with Laura trying to find the Morrigan actually got my heart racing. The moment of action in every panel was perfectly chosen. There was enough character development to wonder if the Morrigan really would pull through or not, and the depiction of her hands, with her symbolic feathers reaching out of the darkness to pull Laura out of harm's way. The Morrigan's positioning behind Laura as simultaneous threat and savior. Yeah, one of my favorite scenes ever. The emotion and build-up were flawlessly executed, and I got the same rush describing it again. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for joining.